Hello, this is Randy Hales. Today's Talking Memphis Wrestling is dedicated to the memory of referee Paul Neighbors Sr., the nephew of Christine Jarrett and the first cousin to Jerry Jarrett. Paul, born November 22nd, 1942, passed away June the 20th, 2025, age 82. Talking Memphis Wrestling, we dedicate this show today to the memories of referee Paul Neighbors Sr.
You'll see America's favorite sport on WHBQ television.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Always a thrill to be live as live can be. The 25th Talking Memphis Wrestling of 2025, and we're here ready to go. Want to say hello big time to my big buddy, brother from another mother, Randy Dandy, Randy West, and I got a story about that, about Randy West, I'm going to tell you a little later on in the show. Hey, Randy Dandy, what is going on? PJ, good to have you. Appreciate the RIP Paul Neighbors. Also, Greg White is saying hello again, everybody. And of course, Calvin Lindsay Jr. is in the house, and we appreciate everybody on this show. BC Collins saying hello, good evening to you. And Frank Seaton. Frank, I'll talk about the reunion. As you see, I have my class of 1980 senior picture. I'm wearing that name tag they handed out to us. We'll talk about that in a little bit. A jam-packed show. Man, we got good cards, great information. I think you will enjoy this show. Hey, Richard Hood, what is going on, pal? See you right here. And Calvin says his birthday is July 27th. Happy early birthday. And Jarius Jackson says, what's the theme song on Memphis Wrestling Music when we go to commercial? Randy Hales. And Adam Dunn will let us know that, and he'll write that to me, and I will tell you because I don't know. Mike, what's going on with you? We'll go to the panel right now, and of course, the person that had major ass technical issues last week, his computer done broke. His computer broke. he had a crazy week. He was going to LA, and then he wasn't going to LA. Then he was going to be on time, and then he wasn't going to be on time. And then all of a sudden the computer broke. He wasn't at all here. Wanted everybody to say hello to Pat Trammell, the original co-host and panel member of this show. Hey, Pat.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. It's good to be back, and I'm thankful for Regina at Best Buy at the Geek Squad who fixed me right up. She carried it in the back, said I'll be right back, and it's fixed. She apparently had to. Apparently, I had um, the battery got somehow disconnected, so it's supposedly good now, and good to see everybody after a week of travel and going to Coleman, Alabama for a 7 o'clock dentist appointment, and then turning around and going back through Birmingham to Hattiesburg, Mississippi tomorrow.
So Calvin and PJ and Frank and Mike and BC and also Calvin Lindsay, everybody's saying hello to you, Pat.
Well, I'm thankful for you. Hello, I missed everybody, and thank you for all your good wishes.
Now, there's something I want to talk to you about in just a second. I want to get Rusty's first take in, and then I want to talk to you about something you did last week. Got together live as live can be with one of the panel members, and we'll talk about that and show the picture that you posted, I posted, we all posted on social media. But right now, I want to welcome to the show. He celebrated this past weekend in New Orleans, Louisiana. I think it was wedding anniversary number 44. I had high school reunion 45. I think I'm right on the 44th wedding anniversary with Mrs. Beth Robinson. We have Mr. William Rusty, aka Dr. Robinson, our newest panel member, our newest co-host, and my good friend. Here's Rusty Robinson. By God.
Thank you, Randy. I can never live up to your introductions. But yes,
I'm just good like that.
This was, in fact, our 44th wedding anniversary, and we did spend a long weekend in New Orleans for it. Just got back to Orange Beach this afternoon, as a matter of fact. So we're doing good. We had a fun. We went to a nice restaurant Friday night, saw the kids and the grandkids over the weekend also. So that was all fun.
Now tell everybody about the musical event that you recently was a part of. Hopefully you can cover that on the podcast tomorrow as well. But you have an opportunity, a first take about a preview for the podcast tomorrow. But you did some singing.
I did, and nobody left because of it. So I guess we did okay. No, I played a gig last night with a band that I have played with on and off for several years. It's Tony D'Alessandro and his All-Stars, and we played at the Spotlight Bar and Grill in actually Metairie, Louisiana, which is a suburb of New Orleans. And like I said, I've known and played with Tony for the last 10 years or so. So whenever I'm in town, I try to get over there and sit in with him. And we did last night. It was a lot of fun. Had a good crowd. Beth went along. She offers moral support, if nothing else.
Well, that's pretty cool. And Brenda, this comment are showing up. Hey, Brenda got mad, I think. Brenda must have said a comment, and this is a running process, and I can't exactly interrupt a co-host and say something to the comment. We do put it up on the screen, so sorry about that. And everybody watching today, and I think we are going to Arab, Alabama. Pat, put a hold on the big scoop that we'll have you talk about your panel meeting the other day, but want to bring in Alabama and Memphis Wrestling Hall of Famer broadcaster. Man, he's done everything. He's the man. He's going to come in here. He was later than bell time, but he was not getting the tardy because he said transmitter, not transmission, a transmitter, radio lingo people. Let's welcome Michael Sant freaking John.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. I haven't been a broadcaster for the last 4 days. I have been a soybean farmer and an engineer, and I know nothing about either one, by the way. So I've been in the middle of a soybean field off of I-65 in 100-degree heat, and I found out that heat and solid-state transmitters do not get along, and so we had an issue that we had to rectify. We had to bring a spare transmitter down from Tennessee. I had to go get it, bring it down, I had to put it in. Then it's a 220 and we have 110, so it's only at half power. And it's been one of those weeks. But hey, the best part of this all is that I get to play with you on Tuesday night, play with Doc and Pat and Coach and all my friends, and it's just great. This is the highlight of my week right now. This is the highlight of my week, and that's my first take.
All right, very good. Now, I've noticed a bunch of people came in after. We do about 1 minute till we do a countdown, and then we did a dedication, and there's people that didn't watch the original part. So we're going to start over again, Adam, and we'll go with the dedication of the show. Today's show is dedicated to the memory of referee Paul Neighbors Sr. Paul, born November the 22nd, 1942, passed away a few days ago, June the 20th, 2025, age 82. Paul was the nephew of Mrs. Christine Jarrett and first cousin to Jerry Jarrett. Rest in peace to Paul Neighbors, and Paul Jr. is watching the show today. Again, we did this earlier, but a lot of you guys wasn't on the show, and I wanted to make sure we did that again. And we'll quickly, somebody that knew Paul Neighbors Sr. will get word from Michael St. John about Paul.
Love this guy. You could not be around Paul Neighbors and not be lifted up and be happy. He enjoyed life. He was one of these characters, and he was a character. He always had something funny to say. He always welcomed you with open arms. He was one of these people that if you were having a bad day or if you were having a bad show, he'd put his arm around you and say, hey, man, it's going to get better. I really think that Paul, especially in the Jarrett wrestling arena, Paul was sort of the glue between everything. Do you understand what I'm saying, Randy? He was sort of the guy that sort of let it all mesh together. And as a referee, I know boys would get hot with him and he'd take a bump. And there was something special about Paul. And I will never forget him. The last time I saw him, we embraced, and he said a kind word, and I said a kind word, and we smiled and said, and he said, we had some good times together. And he was absolutely right. We had some good times together. So his smiling face, his wonderful, outgoing, jovial personality, his big heart is going to be missed. I know it's missed by his family, but I think it's going to be missed by us in the wrestling community and who worked with him. Some of those bus rides back from Dallas, I remember that. I remember a bunch of the rides back from Memphis. And if I'm not mistaken, Randy, I think I actually took a ride with Jerry Jarrett in his limo that Paul Neighbors drove. And if I'm not mistaken, Paul drove the limo every now and then.
Oh, more than every now and then. He did that a lot. Tojo's also driven the limo. I'm sure Paul Jr., if he was old enough, did. I drove it a few times. Eddie Marlin drove it a few times. Those are all good times. Again, Paul's watching today, and our prayers on behalf of the fan base of and a great crew from Team Hales here. We're praying for you, brother. We're praying for you. Rest in peace, Paul Neighbors. I want to bring in everybody in the panel again because I want to talk about Pat about something that he did maybe Thursday or Friday. I forgot the day. But Pat, you can explain this picture to all of us. 2195, and go ahead, Pat Trammell.
Well, this is a annual trip and an annual annual couple of beers I look forward to every year. Since 1988, I've spent a golf weekend with my uh, cohorts from graduate school to University of Alabama. And for many, many years, we went to a place in Niceville, Florida, and then for several years, we decided to go all around the Gulf Coast and do that. But one of my classmates got divorced, has a house, and is a fantastic cook. And he lives in Pensacola, Florida. So for the past probably 6 to 8 years, we go to Pensacola on the weekend, and there's about a dozen or so of us. And the thing I get to do every Thursday on my trip is I get to have a beer at the Wisteria Tavern, which is in actually a neighborhood. It's interesting. There's a bunch of houses, and then there's the Wisteria Tavern, and then there's houses. So it's absolutely in a neighborhood with my good friend Shane Russell, and that's Shane and I. And we sent this picture to you, Randy, and he and I just had a good time visiting and talking about life. Shane and his wife are retired. He's got 4 grandchildren within 3 blocks. And Shane is an avid tennis player and a very good one, and plays in a lot of senior tournaments and competes to this day. And he's enjoying life. And we talked, caught up on our families and talked about Lance a little bit, talked about you guys a little bit, some good, some not so good. But anyway, we just had a good time.
All right. How about
I
that,
want to hear.
Rusty? What a crew that is. Rusty Robertson, Pat Trammell, and Shane freaking Russell.
Yeah.
Oh, sounds good. Boy, that would have been fun. Did y'all play golf this weekend, Pat?
Yeah, I played. Now, playing golf for me means a lot of different things. It used to be a competitive blood sport, and it was like who's going to take Pat. But we're older now, and we don't really care. So I got really frustrated the first day, and so the second day we went out, and I said, guys, I don't care what you think about my character. You've known longer than anybody about my lack thereof. I'm going to tee it up on every shot except the putt. So I had a pocket full of tees, and I teed it up in the fairway, and I teed it up for chips, and I had a good time because I wasn't just topping the ball all over the place. But we had a lot of fun, and we always do. And it's I guess from '88 to today is what 37 years, and it's a little bit like us. We're family by this point. So anyway.
I want to shout out to Reese Lewis, who's watching today, and Michael saying, John, we'll put that picture up, 2195, I believe, and you can comment to that. I see that Pat has an adult beverage in front of him, and I don't see one in front of Shane there.
Well, you just missed it. That's just the camera angle. We generally limit ourselves to 2 beers, but we had 3 this time. We were having so much fun.
And in front of the air conditioning in the beautiful heat and sultry Pensacola, Florida, where I understand the worms are scared from all those balls that you hit, Pat.
Yeah, pretty much.
And where were you, Pat? I know you were in Pensacola.
But well, I stayed at a friend of mine's house, and we played. He's a member at Pensacola Country Club, so we played there.
Where were you drinking beer with Shane? That's what I'm trying to get out of you.
The Wisteria, Wisteria Tavern. And
Is that in Gulf Breeze?
No, it's in Pensacola. It's about 10 blocks from Shane's house, and about 10 blocks from where I stay at my friend Tom Owen's house. And it's an old house. It was originally, I think, a pilot hangout from the naval base, but it is literally in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And cool. It's no big loud band thing. It's just kind of a neighborhood tavern, but it's an old wooden house kind of structure and just got a lot of character. So we enjoy that place because it's convenient for both of us.
So it wasn't those it wasn't those honky tonks at the end of Palafox, huh?
That's correct. That's correct. And it wasn't any of the artistic clubs, ballets.
The ballets.
Pensacola's got some of
There
those.
is a great seafood restaurant, and my sister had surgery down there at the clinic that Dr. Andrews has. But one of the surgery centers is the old Baptist Hospital in Pensacola, just west of Palafox, right off of Cervantes, and she's had 2 surgeries down there. And both times I ate at a place called the Fish House.
Yeah,
that's
really good.
Very, very good. And I set
Yeah,
out.
I've heard of that.
And you overlook the boats coming into the shrimpers and the seafood,
Right.
the fishermen coming in. They get their seafood right off the boat, take it to the back of the restaurant, and away they go. Great place, the Fish House. And they have a signed picture of the father and uncle of Jay Uso. And then they have a picture of Jay and his wife in there that's been signed. So I love that place. It's a great place. But Pensacola, I think, is one of those cities that is under appreciated. You know, everybody loves and talks about Panama City and Destin and all these other, and maybe Fort Walton and, of course, Orange Beach and Gulf Shores here in the Alabama coast. But I love Pensacola. The family used to go there every year for 19 years. I did it. I've been back 4 or 5 times since. And I love the charm and the history of Pensacola. And I know, Pat, that's a draw for you too, because a lot of history in that town.
Yeah, Pensacola is the oldest city in Florida, and was founded
older than St. Augustine.
Well, no, not St. Augustine. The oldest city on the Gulf Coast.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
I want to say hello to Reese Lewis. I want to say hello to James. I want to appreciate everybody of watching Talking Memphis Wrestling. This is not good. James Wendell Davis is tuning in from his hospital bed. So, James, hate that very much. And we hope that we, the 4 of us, can entertain you a little bit, make you laugh, and we talk Memphis Wrestling. And God knows what else we'll talk about. Real quick, Michael.
Hey, I just want to wish him get well, buddy. Get
Yeah,
well,
man. Yeah.
Get well.
Michael,
And I'd like to say something to Paul, just to offer my condolences for your dad. And when we were looking at that picture and you were talking, Randy, you know, I think about those days and envy all of you for being on those roads at night and all that kind of stuff. And I think what struck me is I want to be more thankful in the moment for what we get to do here every Tuesday night with all our friends here.
well said.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Very, very
Eddie
well
Cox
said.
says, good evening, everyone. And he's out door dashing. I've been out Ubering all day long. So make some money, make some money, make some money. Real quick, Michael, and we'll get into the topics I have today. A first take from Michael St. John.
Just real quick on the DoorDash guy, the guy doing the DoorDash. God bless you. I mean, you guys rule. But DoorDashing back when I was in college had a different meaning, because when you would leave
Yes.
her house, you had to dash out the door. So you would make a DoorDash. So it's a whole different world that we live in.
And you get paid for it now, and hopefully he does good. And I certainly by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, because I think it's been since we met before, maybe not. But I have now, since 2019, October, I've had 28,500 Uber rides. 28,500.
Wow.
Damn, that's pretty daggum impressive.
Yeah.
How about that? And now we've heard from Rusty, and we've heard from Pat, and we've heard from Michael, and we're going to do a little first take. Sometimes I want to keep this moving, keep this going, and we get the first takes in. And I'm more often than not, I do the preview, but I don't do a first take. Well, this preview, we have some great cards. Some video that I think you'll be interested in. It's a little egotistical, the video we're going to show right now, but I don't know. And I did this, Michael, before you came out. Can you read my name tag? Can you see my name tag?
Says,
a handsome young man.
it says Randy Hales. I think
Look at
maybe
that
it's from
guy.
the reunion.
Randy Hales, class of 1980. So the old war cry of the Hurricanes was open the roof. Let me get my microphone. Do this right, by God. Open the roof. Let it rain, give them some hell hurricane. The best thing about our reunion this past Friday and Saturday, I got to see people that I went from kindergarten. Imagine that, Michael. Kindergarten all the way through college. All the way through college. Now, you can't really call when you say you had a first girlfriend. I guess first grade really don't count, but there was this young lady, first grader. She's not a first grader now. She's an old person like we are. But her name's Linda Needham. That was the first girlfriend I ever had, and that's the first girl that I ever kissed, and that was in the first grade. And just so many stories coming up. You know what? Said if they would have had an award, and I've said this before, if they would have had a deal, you know how they, Michael and Pat and William, in high school, there's a reward most likely to succeed. Michael, did you get that award?
No, I hid behind the camera the whole time.
How about you, Pat? Did you win the award?
No, I didn't win that award. I'm trying to think of what's up. One of my teachers told me I was most likely, most likely to get out of jail or something. I don't. I know what it is. Mr. Arthur Lane wrote in my yearbook, Trammell, you will be a good man in spite of yourself.
There you go. There you go.
That's fantastic. How about you, Rusty? The most successful one of anybody, Dr. William, a.k.a. Rusty, a.k.a. Doctor. How about you? Most likely to succeed in your class?
No, I'm afraid not. I think I got voted like most likely to be a nerd long term, which I guess that kind of worked out. So, but no, not most likely to succeed.
My point is that in high school, I had this said to me, the most valuable student in the school said to me one time, but listen to the whole thing before y'all get hot. I'll tell you the whole thing. He said, Randy, I was the most likely person to succeed. Then he looked and looked at me. He said, if we'd have had that award in high school, he said, you would have probably been voted the most not likely to succeed. Then he said, look who's written a book, and look who everybody in this class knows, and look who can afford to buy us all drinks tonight. This was the last reunion, our 30th. This is 15 years ago. So I changed a little bit. I want to show a couple of pictures from the reunion. We'll go with 4147 first. You know, I wasn't the only person to make it in the wrestling business. I really wasn't. 4147, and this is the first night, and you see me. And Pat, do you see the shirt I wore? Do you think that was appropriate?
I think that's perfectly appropriate. Absolutely.
It was a talk point for sure. Besides me is my best friend in high school. His name's David Oswald. David started wrestling at 17 years old, doing jobs on Memphis TV as David Oswald when he was 18 years old. He would go to Louisville on Tuesday night, drive all night long, and then be at school for class on Wednesday morning. David, as you see there, he does some Santa Claus work in the time being. He's about a year older than me. He also, David Oswald, teamed with Danny Davis, Danny's first tag team partners as the Nightmares before David fell in love, got married, and unfortunately, David's wife passed away a few years ago. But David and I went and picked him up. He used to back in the high school days before I could drive, before I had a car, I could drive, but I didn't have a car. He would come by my house on Warner Avenue in Jonesboro, pick me up, and he'd take me to school every day. I went and picked him up the other day at his house way across town, and we got to talking because he always took me to school. That's the first time ever he had ridden in the car with me driving. So the roads has changed a little bit, and I'll show you the other picture. This is the next night. We did some singing. Michael, we had 70s music, we had 80s music, we had a disc jockey, we had barbecue catered. Is 4153 is that one, and every one of us, and there was out of 315 people in the class, out of 315 in the class, and we've lost, I thought it was more than it was. I thought it was 50 something, but it's 44 people we lost. We had about 120 people opening the roof. The fight song, Let It Rain, Give 'Em Hell, Hurricane. And that is, I love that picture. And I can't read what the damn sign says, but whatever it was, I thought it was appropriate and kind of funny. But I had a blast Friday and Saturday night, and we'll go with William first. William, you probably, what have you been out of high school? 46 years, 47 years? How long you been out?
Yep, I graduated in 1977, so 3 years before you. So I guess that's 48. Man, that doesn't seem possible.
You're coming up on your 50th, man.
Oh man, we had one for 40 years. We did not have one for 45. And this was Christian Brothers High School in Memphis, which is very popular. The alumni are very loyal at Christian Brothers High School. So we stay in touch with a lot of us stay in touch. And we stayed in touch with most of the brothers that we knew for so long. So most of them unfortunately are gone now. So I assume we'll have a 50th reunion, but I don't know there's been any plans made yet.
I went to my 30th. I didn't go to 10 or 20. I thought, I didn't like those son of a bitches when I was in school with them. Why should I go? Enough people talked me into going. I went to my 30th and had a hell of a time. I mean, a fantastic time. That's actually the last time I've been drunk. That night, I had to have a friend of mine come get me, and we still had a house in Jonesboro. I was living in Poplar Bluff, Missouri at the time. I had to get a ride because I can't afford no DUIs. But I did not drink anything this past weekend. They did have booze the next night. We had a wonderful time. Memories of your high school senior year, Pat, and maybe short remembering of some of the get-togethers you've had. Keep it clean, though, please. This is a family program.
Well, I mean, I'm still very, very close to a lot of people I went to high school with. We hadn't had an official reunion since I think 30, but there's about a dozen of us that go on a trip every other year. We rent a house at the lake or something like that. And my oldest friend in the world, our mothers were literally in the hospital rooms together when we were born. I was born the 5th of October and was in the hospital a couple of weeks. And Pat, his name is Pat too, was born the 10th. And so we've known each other that long, and he lives about a mile and a half from me. And
that's pretty cool.
And I mean, I'm extremely close to the people I grew up with. Randy, you didn't say you saw my coworker.
No, was she there?
She said she saw you and y'all talked.
Well, I didn't know who I was talking to.
Melody Bowman.
Well, everybody had name tags on. I probably would have put that together. I talked to everybody. You know, I'm pretty much over with everybody.
Yeah, I know. I understand that.
I was not when I was in school, but now things have changed. Frank Seaton, my buddy, said the class of 1973, Jonesboro High School, had his 70th birthday party in Jonesboro the same night as my deal. So we'll go, folks. We do have wrestling information. We like talking about real life on this program. We really do. Mike was from 1999, and Brenda is from 88, and BC is 90, and Paul Neighbors is 89, and Adam, I don't know when he is. He can either tell us or write us a note and let us know when he graduated. Oh my God, he's too damn young. Fire him! 2003. 2003. He's just a youngster. How about you? Memories of high school, memories of get-togethers, and do you see any of your high school chums?
Well, I'm back home now. We're Huntsville High, and class of '69, Sin, Sex, Women, and Wine. We were the class of '69, and biggest graduating class in the history of Huntsville, Alabama. And last year was our 55th, and I was invited to be on the committee, and 18 of us, and it was 17 of those people were people that were part of the in crowd, and then there was me. And then when I was introduced as the new member of the committee, the girl that introduced me, sweet thing, she said, and this is the only member of our class that is in a Hall of Fame. And it was, and at the time it was, the Alabama Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And then the next week we came back for another meeting, and we went around the room what's been happening, and then I announced that I was in the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. So everybody got up and walked out of the room. But it was just one of those great moments. But I'm like you. I think we're all in common. We were all not part of the in crowd. I mean, I hope I'm not stepping on any toes. But
I was not.
My senior year, I sort of came out of the shell, if you would, and I announced I was the first out of our class to announce I was going to Vanderbilt, and then 8 others followed. They all became doctors. So my senior year I got more fun out of my senior year than I had probably in the previous 10 or 11 years. So, that's the way it goes. But today I do stay in touch with everybody that's on the committee, and there's some wonderful people. But, at a 55th reunion, you're looking around saying, who's next? And, unfortunately, but I think what we're going to do the next time around is we're gotten small enough to have a dinner party. As before, it's just been, a buffet and dancing and whatever. But I think we all learned that everybody had more fun at this reunion, getting together, visiting each table. We were sort of all making the rounds of the tables and talking to everybody and getting to know people as they are today. So I think the next one might be a dinner party.
Well, that's pretty cool. I'm going to say something now that'll probably hurt some people's feelings and get heat on myself. And it's probably a little egocentric that I'm going to say this. Out of our class of over 300 people, the person that's made his living as a promoter is me, without a doubt. Guess who was not chosen to be on the committee, Michael St. John? I was not chosen to be on the damn committee, and the ladies, as all ladies, do what now?
That's a mistake.
Absolutely, and I still did my best. I promoted it every week. I did my best for sure, and I sent out different people came because I reached out to them and had never been before, and I did, and we're getting a lot of people saying their senior year, but I just think, and it was successful. There's no doubt about it. It was successful. It really was. But, I think I could have helped them. I think I could have helped them, and certainly I could have been one of the spokesmen. And out of everybody there, thank goodness I was the one that a lot of people came by. And Paul says, speaking of high school, I remember Jerry Jarrett let the high school have their prom dance at the ballroom at the big house on Cumberland Hill Lane. The following day, Paul and his dad were scrubbing shoe polish off the floor, and that's the last time Jerry had done that. And you know what? What brought me out of my shell again, this is a kind of wrestling related thing, and Adam, on this, so we won't get kicked off of YouTube or Facebook or anything else, I need you to mute the audio, not of us, because I want these guys to comment as we go around. It'll be 5 minutes of fast pace. There's a video, an excellent video, not just because it features me, but it's because Adam, the great producer he is, puts this together. As Greg White says, he's never been to a class reunion. Comment to this, Adam did a fantastic job. Just think of this with the music, Bruce Springsteen, Glory Days. Because folks, these were my glory days as we watch on Talking Memphis Wrestling. Mike's on. As we mute that right now, that's young Randy and Eddie Marlin, my friend Randy West. That's my graduation picture. Me and Lance. Help me, guys. Bloody Randy.
Announcer Randy.
ESPN Randy.
That's when I interviewed Lance Russell on ASU TV. That's when I called the pile driver by Randy Wood. This is me attacking Scott Bowden on Memphis TV. Your buddy, I stiffed the shit out of him. Then I get a fireball. That's me and my good friend, the great Dave Brown. This is Jerry Lawler destroying my car like hell, and I damn near couldn't see, and I damn near ran over that darn security guard. And now, Jerry Lawler, the no good son of a gun, he's stripping me in front of 350,000 people, Pat. Would you agree to that?
No, I would not agree to that.
Oh, now more problems. I am stripped to my boxers, and I'm being attacked, and now I'm getting away
There
from
you go.
Randy
Down
Lawler.
Union Avenue
I'm
in your
running
boxers.
down Union Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee. Now look at this, the shit that I've done in my life. Jerry Lawler dumped me out of that wheelchair right into that vehicle. Here's Plowboy Frazier, Jimmy Hart, Lance, and Randy. This is me interviewing the doctor, then interviewing Jeff Jarrett. This is my dad, my mother, my entire family.
Oh,
This is
My
Well,
favorite
Randy.
picture.
This is the family picture in 1986. This is me and my mother. This is Thomas Marlin, Eddie Marlin, and me. This is in front of my childhood home. This is the Earl Bell Center where we had wrestling. Used to be the American Legion building, and this is, of course, the Mid-South Coliseum. That another time a shot. This is me cutting a promo in Jonesboro, and a few more pictures there. And how about this? Man, Adam is burying me in this thing.
Who is that, Randy?
Giant Silva, big Giant Silva. And now Lawler's stripping me. My good friend Billy Travis comes in to help me. I'm taking, look at that body, man. Muscle, I nail him. Boom. Nailed the shit out of him. Here comes that no good Stacy choking me with my own darn tie.
I like that bump.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Look at those abs.
Oh,
Boom.
right into private parts. Right, uh-oh.
Here it comes.
Pile
Ooh.
driver number 1. Pile driver number 2. Me and Billy Travis putting, hey, this is Goofy Brandon Baxter climbed on top of that building and dumped a damn bucket of paint. I go confront him, and now I'm challenging Dave Brown and Corey Macklin to a match right there. I'm mad at this point. Pretty intense right there. I'm doing an interview about Jim Cornette. I'm coming to Brandon Baxter's aid right now, and at this point, Cornette and he pushed me, so I pushed him. And again, check, that's me as Randy X. One of Lawler's not best ideas. This is more of the
love that with you and Scott.
Bowden Randy deal. This is me hitting Kevin Lawler and Jim Cornette with the trash can, and let's go out of that right now, and we'll first go for comments. He's probably never seen any of this stuff. Here's William Robinson.
I've seen a little bit of it, but that was great to see again. And yes, Miriam Henson. I don't remember seeing you interacting with Scott Bowden, and I always thought Scott was very underrated. You know, he just was a natural. It seemed like. So I may have to go back and look those up and look at them in their entirety.
Very good. It was really the first physical thing that I've ever done, and it drew money. I was looking at that the other day. Paul Neighbor says, I remember you interviewing the sheep herders at Randy West's house, Jonathan Boyd hitting you with the microphone. That happened to me so many times for sure, and I remember that as, and it just Paul's right. There's that studio holds as many memories as the Coliseum or
Oh
the
yeah.
Kentucky Gardens or any of the buildings in the territory. Pat, your thoughts of that great video that Adam put together?
Well, I tell you, it's good to see all that kind of back to back to back. I've seen a lot of it over the years. You know, you're right, Paul. That studio holds as many memories as the Coliseum. And I remember one of the disappointing moments of my life when I used to go to Memphis a lot more than I do before we were bought by the bank, and I would get Airbnbs. And I got an Airbnb in Midtown, and it was Madison Roberts. And Madison was the news director at that time for TV5. And you know, I rented the Airbnb, and you know, we ended up talking, and she told me what she did. I said, "Can I see where wrestling was?" And she said, "No, they've redone the studio, so it's not there anymore," which I was terribly disappointed in.
They
But
put the
I did
news.
see the parking lot and spent a lot of time in the parking lot.
There's a fence around it now.
Yeah.
Fence around it now. You can't get through it. Michael, your quick comments about that video that Adam put together.
Randy Hales' greatest bunks.
Oh yeah.
That was awesome. I,
He
I,
did good.
I love the when the cowboy you when as a kid playing cowboy in India. That the cowboy hat. That's a cool picture. I love things like that. That's a very telltale video when it all comes down to it. But my first thought was Randy Hales' greatest bunks.
We're
Most
going
people
to
have
take a
greatest
look.
hits, greatest bunks.
We basically 46 minutes before we talk wrestling. Oh, we kind of talked wrestling right then and saw wrestling stuff. I love this show. I love you guys. Rusty, the doctor, Pat Trammell, the banker, and Michael St. John, the Hall of Famer. Man, I'm Randy Hales, the owner, founder, president, Power Pro Wrestling, wearing my JHS badge right now. Everybody doing good tonight as we start with the older card from 1959. This is the place that started it all for me, except it didn't start me right then because we're going to look at 4102. Should be the first card up there. I wasn't born to 1961. This card, Michael, is from 1959, Jonesboro, Arkansas. It won't take you long, Michael, but read this card.
Well, it's Jackie Fargo versus Jim Holly. Now, is that the Holly from the wrestling family in Mobile? Is that our father, perhaps? His grandfather?
I'm not sure. I wasn't around in that year. I wasn't around in 1959. I was -2, so I don't know.
I see Fargo is the second picture from the left in that famous jacket with the big lapels. I remember that picture. The Bavarian boys, I'm not sure who those guys are, against Johnny Long and the Green Dragon. I remember Johnny Long. I remember when he was wrestling in the territory. He went on and had a big career, I want to say, in the Carolinas as well. I couldn't identify who the Green Dragon could have been or was back then.
Yeah, I
Pat,
will
your
agree
comment?
with that. Yeah, the
Go-
only ones I recognize on that card were Jackie Fargo and Johnny Long. I don't know who the other ones were either. I never heard like Bob Holly or those guys say that they were second generation guys, but who knows? It could be.
Pat?
You know, it's interesting to me that Fargo's not at the top of the card.
This was in the 50s, though.
Okay, okay. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody else on that card. Potentially, I've heard of Johnny Long.
Yes, I have too. That's the only one on the card at the American Legion Arena, which turned into the Arthur Ranch Auditorium, which is now the St. Bernard's Auditorium. I want to say hello real quick to Bo James, Eddie Cox, and talking about the bumps I took against the Smoky Mountain boys, but he's confused because my name is not Randy Hill, Eddie Cox, not Randy Hill, but that's okay. If you have money, I'll answer to it. That's for sure. Our next card we're going to take a look at is in 1972. It's June the 15th, 1972. It's 4137. 4137. Is that too small for you
Yeah,
to read that card?
That's
Michael?
hard to see.
It's hard to see, but when I put my glasses on, I can reach up and see it. Boy, oh boy. Okay, this is a pretty outstanding card.
That's a good card right there.
I agree. Watch All Star Championship Wrestling on WLKY TV, channel 2032 in Louisville, Kentucky. All right, the opening match was Eddie Marlin and Bearcat Brown against Don and Al Green with manager Sir Clements. I always thought Sir Clements was an outstanding manager that didn't get his propers. From Hawaii, Oni Wiki Wiki, who ended up promoting Shreveport and working with Bill Watts in the day against Blackjack Donovan, Jackie Fargo against Big Bad John, Lynn Rossi against Sir Clements. It's an Indian chain match, chain 3 feet apart. And the NWA World Title Championship match is the main event. Carl and Kurt Von Bronner with manager Saul Weingroff defending against Tojo Yamamoto and Jerry Jarrett. That's a hell of a card.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a hell of a card top to bottom there.
Absolutely.
Tell me, Pat, who you don't know on that card, because obviously I know everybody, and I'm like everybody else. Fargo was the only, and Johnny Long was all I knew of that Jonesboro card. Here, though,
I
know
think I've
of
known
everybody.
everybody. I mean, I've probably seen Oni Wiki Wiki wrestle, and not live, but less than the fingers on this hand. I'll tell you what, the match I probably, if I had to pick one of those I'd want to see, truthfully, today would be Eddie and Bearcat against the Greens. I mean, for me, that's a headline match. That's the top of the card match.
Hey, not Adam, but Michael, help me out with Gregory's question, because there's so many versions of chain matches, and I couldn't tell you what a Indian chain match is. Do you remember?
I honestly think they came up with the idea between the Indian strap match and a chain match and combined the two names. And so I don't think there's any really credence to it. I think it was just a name to give something. But remember now, they're only 3 feet apart. And a lot of the bull rope matches and the chain matches you saw, they were 6 foot, in some cases 8 foot apart, because you could use the chain or the ropes to, tie them up or do whatever you're going to do. So that is interesting. But I'll tell you what, and kudos to this card. I guess this was the Nick and Roy production, but they always, and I know that in talking to Mr. Goulas and just talking to him and getting his philosophy about things, when he had a big card, he always liked to have an opening match that got the people hot, that really got them going. And Pat, I think you hit the nail on the head. Bearcat Brown and Eddie Marlin against Don and Al Green would be a match to get them going. And, Lynn Rossi was the normal partner for Bearcat, but he was tied up in a feud, obviously, with Sir Clements, probably something done in Lynn and Bearcat, and he was wanting to get even. I would guess that's part of that program. But I'm like you. I mean, that's a great opening match, and I think everybody would agree that the participants were more than able getting the people out of their seats and yelling and screaming and hot for the rest of the show.
Before we get Rusty's opinion on that card, James asked, when did Jackie start the Struts? And in the late 50s and the early 60s, his run with Don Fargo and also Sonny Fargo as well, Roughhouse, in New York, they did the struts. So that's
Yep.
when, way back in the late 50s, early 60s. This card, William, obviously, I'm trying to think, and the year of that card was in 1972.
That
And
was going to be my question. What year was that? Because it had to be after Tojo became a good guy and started teaming up with Jerry. So it
June
must have been
15th, 1972.
okay. That makes sense.
You were mentioning Fargo and the strut. I've always heard the story that the Fargos were invented in New York. They invented their gimmicks and whatever in New York, and took a lot from the Grahams, from Eddie and Dr. Jerry Graham. But also, I think the Valiants, Luscious Johnny and Handsome Jimmy, were just starting out then. And when you look at those three tag teams, if you look at some old tapes, they're very similar. So when the Fargos came south, they brought that Graham look and style south, and it hit big.
Absolutely. They were
you at
headliners in New
Were
York.
you at that card? Do you think there's a possibility you were at that card?
I
Me,
don't
no.
remember it. Yeah, I don't think I was.
That was Louisville, though, was it not?
Oh, that was Louisville.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
so I
yeah.
wasn't
You
there.
wouldn't have been in Louisville.
Yeah,
but
I wasn't there.
That is for sure. I'm kind of looking at different things that Adam can put up as I do this next little bit. Adam, you can go ahead and either put up our media thing, or Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame thing, or our Talking Memphis Wrestling thing, because I want to get deep dives. So as I look at my notes and talk over this, people, folks, I'm going to throw a lot of information at you before we go specifically with the card. So I want you to follow me for sure with this, because this is attendance-wise in Memphis, Tennessee. This is the most successful period of time, not money-wise, because tickets later became more expensive. This was attendance-wise certainly the most successful year in Mid-South Coliseum Memphis wrestling lore, without a doubt in the world. It started with a big crowd on May the 27th of 1974 with a crowd of 9,144 people. Just a big crowd. The next week, with the main event, Rick Gibson with Jackie Fargo in his corner against Jerry Lawler did 11,629 people. June 17th, Lawler against Fargo, 11,542 people. June the 24th, 11,738 people, Fargo versus Lawler. Then July the 1st, 1974, Fargo Lawler, 11,407. The next week, July the 8th, 11,000 people. The next week, July the 15th, 11,700 people. On the way, the road to the gold, Jerry Lawler faced the original Sheik, 11,700 people. The next week, over 10,000 people. July 22nd, Lawler against Bobo Brazil. The next week, Lawler Bobo, 10,220. Next week, Lawler Bobo, 10,750. August the 12th, 11,599 people. I mean, we'll get in a few minutes and look at the fantastic card, the June, as I'm looking here, the June the 17th card. But right now, I threw, as we get all the panel members back on the screen right now, we're talking Memphis Wrestling going, great guns. Pat, do you think that's a good defense of people out there say, oh, Memphis Wrestling was rinky-dink? the Memphis Wrestling was small time. Do you think that will shut their ass up right there, those figures?
Absolutely, I think it was. But in one of another thing I think that puts it into perspective. And I'm not going to get this too far wrong, but Jim Cornette was talking about the history and success of Memphis wrestling, and if Vince Senior had drawn as many people per capita in Madison Square Garden as as uh, uh, Jarrett and you and others drew in the Mid South Coliseum in the heyday, they would have sold out Madison Square Garden 3 times a week for a year.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Paul Neighbor says Lawler and Fargo put asses in the seat. And then Mike says, did Jackie Fargo used to go by Honey Boy Fargo? He did for sure.
He was
and
that's
Eddie
when
Cox
Randy
talking-
was that when he was in New York.
Yeah, and before in the North
Okay.
Carolina as well. Eddie Cox talking about Big Bad John. He was just Big Bad John in one of the cards we saw earlier, but obviously he became the bicentennial baby, Big Bad John, and he's the one that named Bill Dundee the superstar, and that's a thing. So, absolutely, Rusty, you lived your childhood, so you know what it meant back there. But a town going weekly, and that many weeks in a row, over 10,000 people, and more often than not selling out 11,500 seat Coliseum that you could cheat and make it 11,008. That's impressive, right?
Oh, absolutely. I remember that summer 74 was probably the busiest summer in Memphis, maybe ever, in terms of attendance at the Coliseum itself. And I was there for several of those. I don't remember all of them. One thing I will comment on that I noticed from looking at that was the first match that you listed there, or the first card that you listed there, was in May, and that was about 9,000 or something. And then the very next week was in June, and that was 11,000 and something. And Memphis always did better after school got out. So I'm going to guess the May card was before school got out, because typically in Memphis at that time, it was Memorial Day or right around there when we got out of school. So the way I understood it, Jerry, Jarrett, and Nick and them would load up the summer cards because they figured they have a bigger potential audience in the summer, and I think that's probably what the case was for this set of cards as well.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Michael, that was a lot of figures that I just barked at you guys, a lot to wrap our heads around. But man, how is that not the most impressive thing you've ever heard in your life?
That was a hell of a run. And think about the kind of money that would have drawn in this day and time. I don't know what the money figures out of that run was, but if you ran that on the calculator to what that would be today, that was just mind-boggling. And it continued the run. But that was the road to the championship and bringing in the people from the other territories that you'd only read about or seen in wrestling magazines or maybe talked about on a TV show, and bringing those. I mean, can you imagine? People in Memphis went hobo wild over Bobo Brazil. I mean,
absolutely,
they went out of their minds, and there were others too that came in, and I mean, that idea I think was. I go back to the when Dusty came to town. Hello, information. Give me Memphis, Tennessee. I can remember when Dusty came to town. That was big news. And of course, Channel 5 made it a news story. Coming up Monday night, Jerry the King Lawler takes on the legendary American Dream, his first time ever in Memphis, Tennessee, Dusty Rhodes. I can remember seeing that in the sportscast on Channel 5, long before ESPN ever thought about wrestling being a sport. So, that run, that was a very well-supported and well-produced run.
One thing I want to do right now, and Michael, I want you to get your glasses uh, back on if you could, because Adam's going to put up 4140. 4140. This is June the 17th, 1974. It drew 11,542. And if you can't read it, Michael, I have typed out the card so I can do it. But if you can read as much as you can of the card, or you tell me what you want to do, and I have the card right in front of me.
Well, let me see if I can bring this out. Ladies match, Heather Feather versus Jungle Jane.
I've never heard of Jungle Jane, but I have heard of Heather Feather.
Sounds like a couple of talent that they pulled off of Airport Road. Frank
Oh.
Monty against the Red Shadow.
Do
Mike
you think
Jackson.
he was hey, let me ask you a question here. Do you think the Red Shadow was any kin to Pat Malone, the Green Shadow?
No, different color mask.
Okay.
The next card is in, or the next match, Mike Jackson, who still works around here. I mean, he was in Boaz a couple of weeks ago. Action Mike Jackson and Tony Ledoux against Ronnie Blastein and David Spencer. Don Green versus Jim Kent. Now, remember, Jim Kent was their manager at one time of Don and Al Green.
And
Steve
also of Lawler and White, and also of the Bounty Hunters.
Of the Bounty Hunters, that's right. Steve Kovac, who was a Canadian star that was here for about a year against Mr. Kamikaze, is that right? Then George Goulas and Dennis Hall against the Sandins?
It's like Samdens.
Samdins?
If
I
George
wonder if
wrote,
that's just the Samoans.
The Samoans.
With
the
a
Samoans.
typo.
yeah,
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
Samoans. Yeah, with the typo. That's
Nick wrote
interesting. So
this
that would have been
card.
Alpha. That would have been Alpha and Sika, right?
Probably.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so too. Again, this is 74, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
1974.
Because Pat, they ran this card almost identical in Birmingham on a Monday night at the Boutwell Auditorium. I was at ERC at the time, and I think I may have been even at this when they ran a very similar to card around that same time in summer of 74. The other, look at it. Look how many matches on this card. For this match, only all ticket prices increased 50 cents. Oh my God. I wonder if everybody could afford it. Luthez against Rick Ronaldo. I don't remember Rick Ronaldo. I do, of course, Luthez.
Luthez probably beat him in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and that again was a time that Thez was on his backside and needed money, so he's making every shot he could. Joey Rossi and Tojo Yamamoto against the Bounty Hunters. I'm sure Tojo carried that one. I'll tell you how that match went. Joey started, got the hell beat out of him. Tojo came in for a hot tag, then they double teamed Tojo, and then they beat Joey. And I almost remember this, believe it or not. Ricky Gibson against the Shadow. Ricky Gibson was skinny at that time. He was a thin, his brother was more of a bodybuild type. Ricky was sort of tall and slender. Grudge match, Al Green and Sam Bass against Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin. That would have been a good one. And the NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship Tag Team Championship match, Bobby Main and Charlie Fulton with manager Sir Clements against Bobo Brazil and Bearcat Brown. Boy, don't you know that the Boutwell was hopping for that one. And in the main event, the fabulous Jackie Fargo against the King, Jerry Lawler. And Lawler at this time was really establishing himself in Memphis, in Birmingham as being a heel. This was right after he stopped tag teaming with Jim White and was doing the thing on his own. And Lawler sort of looks like a juvenile delinquent in that picture.
yeah.
And this is a Mid-South Coliseum card. Pat, your comments, because this card, how does this not blow you away?
Well, it does, but I mean, hell, did anybody get out of there before midnight? And I don't, was that a Nick thing, Michael, to put? I mean, there's a 23-man battle royal, so there's got to be in the high 20s wrestlers on the card.
Yeah. This had
Yeah,
to be a special event card, though.
And
It's
this is
almost-
this is for sure a Jerry Jarrett book
You
card,
think
Pat.
so?
Oh,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree. I
Well,
agree.
it's just it's too much, you know. But maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't have been back in the day.
Well, of course, you're 2 weeks prior to the 4th of July. It's like Doc was saying, summer, the kids are out. And
Right.
so it was a special event kind of card. But they did this, if I'm not mistaken, in 74. They ran this same type of card in Nashville and in Birmingham and in Louisville and in Chattanooga, for that matter. And it was like a 1 week special event. They increased prices by 50 cents and they really blew it out. But as to what you were saying, I know Nick was very he was very, very solid about making sure the matches were over by 10 o'clock. And even when we were doing TV tapings at 10 o'clock, he wanted those matches over, and he'd have, whether he had four matches on the card or he had 20 matches on the card, some of these matches may have gone a minute. And as soon as they rang the bell and raised the hand, wrestlers left the ring, bing, 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 here we go. Here comes the next match. And probably in this card, I would bet there were two 10-minute intermissions.
Randy, when did the Mid-South Coliseum open?
For wrestling in 1972.
Okay.
Now, let me answer Richard Hood's questions. Charlie Fulton and Frank Morrell wrestled as the Mighty Yankees back in the day, but very impressive card. What do you think, William, of this card that we have up on the screen right now from 1974? Once again, the most attended about 12-week period in the history of Memphis wrestling.
Yeah, my first thought was just like Pat, that it's just overwhelming. And I also had the thought, well, maybe this was a Nick Goulas card rather than a Jerry Jarrett card, but it doesn't seem to be. The other question I was going to ask, I might ask Michael this because you mentioned the Gibsons. I knew there were, Ricky and Robert Gibson, but you said in this case, Ricky was the skinny one or the thin one?
No, Robert was the thin one. Ricky
That's
was
what
the
I was thinking,
bodybuilder.
yeah.
Was this Ricky?
I may have misheard
Was that
you.
Rick Gibson? Yeah. No, this is I for some reason I've got him confused in my mind. Ricky Gibson had the body, and
Right.
and his brother was tall and thin.
Now,
Wow.
Adam asked-
Robert did fill out some eventually, but starting out, Ricky was definitely bigger.
Yeah. And once he got
Adam,
the meeting, where
Adam
Ricky
asked a
Martin
question,
started
is
doing
Lawler
it.
wearing, well, let me look at the comments here and see what Adam says. Is he wearing the Army hat? And Lawler, around 75 and 76, they called him General Lawler, and I think in 1974 he did not. Rusty, I'll ask you.
Yeah.
Or sorry, I'll answer the question myself. Of all those matches, it's hard to pick one for sure. You want to see. I would have wanted to see Jackie Fargo and Jerry Lawler. I would have also wanted to see, just because big name Bobo Brazil and Bearcat Brown against Bobby Fulton and Charlie Fulton. I want to see that. Of course, Al Green and Sam Bass against Eddie Marlin and Tommy Gilbert. And I would have liked to see Lou Thayer. There's just certainly you can.
A little nostalgia value, part two, Lou Thez.
Looking at that card, Michael, and starting with the top, that's the main event. Then left side, I would say, then going down, I say Lawler, Fargo, then Bobo and Bearcat, then Al Green and Sam against Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin, then Ricky Gibson's match because he was over, and the fact Lucas was on the card. I think that's what drew the 11,542 people. I don't think they would have needed any of the other matches. Do you?
I think at this point in time, Fargo and Lawler could have drawn the majority of that house. I mean, you could have had a four match card on this card, and I think they'd have still had 10,000 plus because of Lawler versus Fargo. And people.
I was going to say the same thing. We bought tickets to see Lawler against Fargo in those days.
I think for the urban audience, the fact that they put two of the top black stars in America at the time in 1974 as a tag team, that would draw them. I mean, people people of both of all races, I think, would love to see Bearcat Brown and Bobo Brazil. I can guarantee you this, and that I was, and Pat, you know both of those characters. Bobo could go. I mean, Bobo could go, and Bearcat had that big leg drop. So I think Bobo probably really Cocoa Button all over the place, and at the end of the match, Bearcat drops the leg. You know, I just think that's the end of that one.
You know, it's interesting. Bobo in the old Georgia Championship wrestling days, okay, the old pre-Dusty, all that. Bobo to that promotion was kind of like Fargo in Birmingham. You know, you had a big ass problem, you bring in Fargo. Well, that's what they did in Atlanta. You know, they brought Bobo Brazil in.
Yeah, you're right about that. And the great thing about Bobo, you know, he was world known. I mean, you know, a great wrestler, but a great name. Who wouldn't want to go see a wrestler named Bobo Brazil?
Yeah.
And you know, the cornet, the thing that he told about him in Louisville, and the backstage about to go on, and the two security people talking and said, "We got somebody here. They got a guy here named Hobo Brazier."
Yeah.
And Bobo turned to Cornette and he said, 26 years in this business and I'm Hobo Brazier.
Hey, does anybody have a calculator handy?
I do.
So I'm going to call up, starting with.
He's a banker. Of course he does.
Well, he's
Well,
not at
I've
his
got a
desk.
cell phone.
Okay, tell me when you have it ready, and we're going to start
I'm
with
ready.
May 27th, and then we'll go through this and give me a total. This is starting with May 27th, 9,144.
Okay.
June 3rd, 11,332.
Okay.
For some reason, I don't have June 10th, so we'll skip to June 17th, 11,542.
Okay.
I found the one I missed. June 10th was 11,629.
Okay.
June 24th is 11,738.
Okay.
July the 1st, 11,407.
Okay.
July 8th, 10,535.
Okay.
July 15th, 11,700 for Lawler and Sheik.
Okay.
July 10th, round figure of 10,000.
Okay.
July 29th, 10,220.
Okay.
August the 5th, 10,750.
Okay.
August 12th, for Dick the Bruiser and Jerry Lawler, 11,599.
Okay.
Give me a total.
131,596. Or roughly half the population of Memphis at the time.
Now, does that make anybody speechless? That is absolutely,
Okay, what's the average ticket price?
well, through that, I would say, Michael, would you agree with me, 375?
I would say, I was going to say 350.
Okay, do 350.
Yeah, wasn't it $2, $3, and $4? Was that what it was? At that
Yeah,
time?
I would say 350 for sure.
Okay. That's all right, hold on. What year was this, Randy?
It was in
1974.
160, 586 in 1974.
While Pat's looking that up, I will make a comment about that. You mentioned, Randy, how popular the black wrestlers in Memphis were, even with the white audience. And that was very true. That was one of the very few institutions in Memphis at that time where that was the case, where black wrestlers or black entertainers could be accepted. You think about it, just a few years earlier, Martin Luther King had been assassinated in Memphis. Then in 72, they started busing for the purpose of desegregation, which further split the city. So Memphis was a very racially divided town. So wrestling was one of the very few places where that didn't seem to matter. So the black wrestlers, the white wrestlers, all were as popular with each other's race.
Michael, I just saw your note. I just now saw it. Do you need to be taken off the screen for a minute?
Just for about a minute, if you don't mind. I've got to run upstairs real quick.
Okay. And
That's
Michael,
in 2025 in $2025, Randy. That's a $3 million gate for the summer.
say that again.
$3 million in 2025 dollars.
That will get me on a rant because people like your buddy Ole Anderson said that bullshit Tennessee style and everybody that liked Tennessee. Who was doing that type of money weekly? Michael, William and Pat, who was doing that type of money? And this is why Memphis, Tennessee is the greatest wrestling city in America. And if you don't believe that, go F yourself.
Well, and I want to point out that that's at the Mid-South Coliseum one night a week. That doesn't include Louisville. That doesn't include Tupelo. That doesn't include Jonesboro. That doesn't include Nashville. That doesn't include wherever else, the cards were going on. So that's probably a $5 million summer.
Isn't that amazing?
In 2025, so that's
It's just
based on my Randy, based on my understanding of wrestling economics, which I've kind of pieced together from listening to you and Cornette and others. Jerry in the heyday was probably putting $4 to $5 million in today's dollars to the bottom line.
absolutely no doubt about it. Michael, you went away, but once again, before you have your words, I don't know if you heard. Pat, go ahead and tell him that total you got out of those 12 cards in Memphis in 1974, and then tell Michael what that would be estimated in money in 2025. So go ahead and tell Michael those figures.
Well, there's 130 something, some odd
135, 596.
Yeah, 135, 596 at an average price of 350, which today would be which in $2025 would be a $3 million summer.
Wow.
And as I pointed out, that's only on Memphis on Monday night. That's not the rest of the territory.
That builds a big house on Cumberland Hills Drive. That is a big house. On
No
Cumberland
kidding.
Hills Drive.
And it about cost Jerry Jarrett his territory.
Really?
Yeah.
That big house, that's when
Oh, yeah.
Lawler tried to make the
That's right. That's
go
right.
ahead and take the territory.
Well, let's give Genius credit where Genius is given credit. I mean, look at those cards. Look at the people he was bringing in. The TVs were running hot angles. I mean, there was 2 or 3 hot angles on TV every Saturday. The promos were incredible. And this is the era. Remember, we didn't have wrestling videos yet. We didn't get into the quote-unquote MTV music style videos for wrestlers in 74. That came later in 78, 79, 80. So, this is good old-fashioned home style championship wrestling. Wrestling as a sport, wrestling that people loved and believed. And I mean, there was no doubt that what they were seeing on TV was, it was hitting home. Personal issues draw money. Perfect example. Perfect.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. And let me look. And obviously, the history of. Do you know the history of the music videos, Michael? What gave Jerry Jarrett that idea?
I always thought it was MTV. I always thought it was.
Well, in a way, but he was up watching TV and he heard music going on in Jennifer, his daughter Jennifer's bedroom. So he walked down there and said, "What are you watching?" And she said, "Oh, the greatest thing. There's music videos, the greatest thing." She was going crazy, and he saw that and he went crazy. The great mind he had, transformed that in wrestling. And James is saying it's medicine time, and he's going night night. Appreciate you watching. He's in the hospital, and
Night,
certainly
James.
our
Get well, buddy.
thoughts and prayers are with you. Last week we went about an hour overtime. Not going to do that today. I'm editing here a little bit. We'll do photos of the day in a little bit and run through those real quick. We'll do one more card for Michael to put his glasses back on. We'll go with Memphis, Tennessee. This is a big night on June the 21st, 1976. This is number 4149. 4149. And I would imagine this is the last card that we have in the thing, and Adam has it up. It's at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee, promoted by Nicholas Roy Welch and Burt Bates. And Michael, can you read this card, starting with the opening match and going up, and we'll spend most of our time on the main event.
And of course, the plug at the bottom of the card for wrestling on Channel 13, WHBQ TV on Saturday.
Let me give this date one more time so everybody can be aware. This is around 2 years later than the card we just read, the great card in Memphis. This was from June 21st, 1976. He's done this before, and here's Michael St. John.
All right, former wrestling manager J.C. Dykes against Don Kernodle. Tag team action, the Dominoes with J.C. Dykes. Help me out on the Dominoes, Randy. That was Frank Hester and who?
Pepe Lopez.
Pepe Lopez, that's right. Okay, against Charlie Cook and Don Anderson. Was Charlie Cook the country music program director of WMC at that time?
No, somebody different.
Okay,
This
just making sure.
was a black young man, very, very, very good former football player.
Okay, this was 3 months before I moved to Memphis, so I'm still in Birmingham at this point. The next match was Plowboy Frazier against Sam Bass. Boy, that would be an interesting match. Cowboy Frankie Lane against Tommy Gilbert. The winner will get a Southern title shot. In the first main event, the Southern Tag Team Championship on the line, the title versus the mask. Jerry Jarrett and Jackie Fargo had the belts. They took on Don Green and the Scorpion. And who was the Scorpion at that time, Randy? You remember?
Don Bass.
That was Don Bass. Wow. Okay. And then the main event, a combination boxing wrestling match, 15 rounds. Jerry the King Lawler against the Soul Man Rocky Johnson. And I guarantee you there was a 10-year-old boy in the Mid-South Coliseum dressing room at that time watching his dad named Dewey. And that was I came into Memphis right about the time Rocky was at his high point with this whole thing with Lawler. But Jerry Lawler against Rocky Johnson in a 15-round boxing match. And inevitably what happened, a wrestling match broke out during the boxing match.
Without a doubt. And Richard Hood says Charlie Cook played football at Grambling University, and that's true on that. And a couple of things that I would like to say before we talk about that card, and I think it's just something to really think about here. This card we just looked at that Adam still has on the thing, this was June the 21st, 1976. June the 21st, 1976. And so, Michael, read the Plowboy Frazier match again.
Plowboy Frazier against Sam Bass. Is that right? Yep. Sam
Yes.
Bass.
And that was on July the 21st, 1976. Sam Bass passed away in Dixon, Tennessee the next week on July the 27th, 1976, at 41 years old. And again, let me tell you, before we get other panel members talking about this Rocky Johnson match, the way they did that, remember, we didn't get every territory in the country's TV. The way they did this was about 4 weeks in advance. People always said who would win, a wrestler or boxer. The fans used to say this. Everybody did this. So they made and promoted it for 4 weeks, wrestler versus boxer. Obviously, Rocky Johnson was already probably 8 years as a professional wrestler. People didn't know that. So they put video together and they made it strictly boxer versus wrestler. They showed sparring video that they had shot, or Rocky had shot, with George Foreman. Do you remember that, Rusty? And George
Absolutely.
Foreman and Lawler. And so they made it strictly. The Channel 13 News covered that. We've showed that before. Charlie B. Watson,
Yep.
Rusty, you and Michael both remember Channel 13 sportcaster Charlie Watson, and sports type of interview, both people in the Channel 13 studios. So the two interesting things about that card, the next to last time Sam Bass would be at the Mid-South Coliseum, and also the first time that card that we read that Rocky Johnson debuted at the Mid-South Coliseum. Pat, we'll go with you, then Rusty, then Michael.
I don't know if I'd like to have seen that or not, because I saw Inoki and Muhammad Ali do that, and it was god awful. Can you put the card back up, Adam? I had a. Did Cowboy Frankie Lane come here much? Because he was a mainstay in Mobile.
Yes, he
for the
did.
Bills. Okay.
He was there pretty
Okay.
often. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. He was a baby face in Mobile for a decade.
And Michael Richard Hood says at this time,
Yes.
that The Rock was 4 years old.
Well, that may have been a little premature on my comment, but I know that when Rocky in 77, when Rocky was in Memphis going up against Lawler at the Cook Convention Center, that's the first time I ever met Dewey, as his dad introduced him to me. And a very quiet young man, and very, very sit down next to him and talk to him, and yes sir, no sir kind of thing, but not much more out of him. But Rocky Johnson made several runs in Memphis, and I think if you look back on the career of Soul Man Rocky Johnson, I think the Memphis-Nashville territory ended up being a pretty good one for him. Didn't he come to Memphis though the first time out of Houston? I want to say,
Yes.
I remember doing promos that he had been wrestling in the Houston area.
Absolutely. And then in 1996, in USWA Wrestling, James, you're right, Flex Cavana ended up becoming The Rock. It's Dewey Johnson, as a matter of fact. Pat, your thoughts on this card and the significance of Sam Bass?
Sam Bass. I mean, I know was instrumental in Lawler's career, and he was. I don't know if Sam did anything other than manage or wrestle, but he had a great mind for promos, for sure, because he was one of the top 3 Birmingham heels of all time. I mean, I hated that guy every time I saw his face. I mean, I just he was the quintessential heel manager.
Oh, he was so good at it.
Yeah.
Now that next week is Adam's asking a question that, yes, both dominoes, It was Sam Bass, Frank Hester, and Pepe Lopez that all the Dominoes passed away in that thing. Michael.
Randy, was it the next week or the next month? Because this is a June card, and didn't they die in July?
Oh,
I thought it was
actually,
July.
yes, you're right. It was my bad on that. It was July 27th.
That's what I
July
thought. I thought they
27th.
died
You're absolutely right.
I was going to say, Randy, somebody is Hood R12 in the chat says, guys, I believe Rocky Johnson sparred with Muhammad Ali too. And I remember them playing that on, in preparation for that match, that Ali or Johnson had been a sparring partner to Ali. And they were playing off the Ali and Noki match that Pat said was so bad. And us as just amateur fans or mainstream fans, that was pretty exciting, the Ali Inoki match. So we were pretty excited to get that basically coming to Memphis. And that was right up there. Somebody else mentioned, didn't they talk about this match? Frank mentioned, didn't they talk about this match on Channel 13? And that is correct. That was when wrestling was still on 13. Charlie B. Watson was their mainstream sports guy on Channel 13. And I can remember him interviewing specifically both Lawler and Rocky Johnson on separate sittings and putting those interviews into their regular sports section. In other words, it was not for a wrestling segment at all. It was in their regular, like 10 o'clock news on weeknights. So that was a fascinating thing. I thought the concept behind that match again was brilliant.
Absolutely, Michael. Let's wrap up the card section right now with final comments on that card. Then we'll breeze through the cards, the pictures of the week.
Without a doubt, I think I agree with Pat. I guarantee you the Rocky Johnson Jerry Lawler boxing match was a hell of a lot better than Inoki and Ali. And I was one of the fools that paid $10 pay-per-view back then to watch Inoki and Ali because I'm a huge Ali guy. And then to see Inoki lay on his back for, 8 rounds or 6 rounds and kick at Ali the whole time. I'm like, this is bull. But I guarantee you this was a lot more interesting for a lot cheaper price.
Lawler, Sam passed the chain to put in the glove, and Lawler knocked him out. That's exactly what it was. But yeah, 1974 was a magic year. We're going to breeze through this, folks, because we got about, I want to kind of, if we can, close it all out by 55 after and make up from last week. Michael, I want you to describe this one because I have a little trouble, but you're more of a Gulas guy than I am. 4103. We're going to go through this quick. Help me.
The wrestling calendar. Oh, my God. Yes.
Flamagram wrestling calendar, not just the wrestling calendar.
Scott Teal would have put this together.
Yes, and he didn't put my picture on it. So just so you know. Let's see. That's Leaping Lanny Poffo up at the top.
All right, let's go top left or clockwise. Michael.
Okay, George Gulas, Leaping Lanny Poffo.
Let me point out with George with the hanging the gold chain and the big lapels there.
All right, you guys are going to have to help me out with the next two. I just from those shots, I can't recall either.
Is that Dick Murdoch? Maybe the far right. I
don't know who that is, but that wouldn't be Nick.
No, but I don't
Murdoch.
think. Yeah, I don't think that's Dick Murdoch. I don't know.
I'm not sure who either one of those. Yeah.
Coming down, we got Tojo Yamamoto, the Sheik, Bobby Eaton, Andre the Giant. And that looks like a very young Coco Beware with the mustache at the bottom.
Yep. I think so.
That is Joey.
I think it looks like Charlie Cook.
You think it's Charlie Cook? You could be right.
Hey, James answered far right. He's right. Far right from the top. It's Don Kent.
Don Kent. Okay. All right. Let's see. At the bottom, that's Joey Rossi to who we think is Charlie Cook. Above that is Gypsy Joe with the long hair. The guy with the bandana with the hanging down off his ear, I have no idea. To the left is that Angelo Poffo, perhaps?
It could be.
Maybe.
Sailor Art Thomas, I think, is the gentleman above him. and then I can't see a clear shot of the next person up. But then the 70s glasses look is Lynn Rossi. So, and then of course Nick in the middle of the Slamagram wrestling calendar, absent of Michael St. John's headshot. Thank God.
Richard says that's Pez Watley.
Pistol Pez Watley. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I
Pez
think,
right next to Andre the Giant.
yeah,
For
that's
sure.
a good call, Richard.
Yes,
Yeah.
Randy, do you have an actual copy of this?
No, I just stole it online.
I wonder if Mark has any. I'd pay for that.
Let's go ahead and real quick look at 4115, Pat.
All right. This is the Channel 2 studio. No, I'm sorry. I'll take that back. It's the Channel 19 studios atop Montesano Mountain in Huntsville, Alabama. Ken Lucas being interviewed at the table by Grady Reeves, local Huntsville legend, and behind him a very, very young Bobby Eaton, who took a 5-minute ride from not Lincoln Street. He grew up on Stevens Avenue in 5 Points and just up the Montesano Mountain Parkway through the state park and up to the studios at Channel 19 in Huntsville, Alabama. Two great matches on the card, along with Sailor Moran.
Now there is Jet Set. He was a member of the Jet Set then, I guess. But what's that third word on there?
No, I think that's Jet Set. Gosh, that's a good question. Forever, maybe?
That's what I was thinking. but it
Yeah, I
doesn't-
bet it is. Let's
But
look.
that's
real-
Ken Lucas and not George Goulas.
Okay.
Yeah, 4116.
I think that sign, just FYI, before we get off that, I think that sign was drawn by Jerry Lawler. Or if not, Saul Weingroff.
Could have been either one of them, but if it's on Nick's TV, I would say Saul. Next one.
There's Lance.
As Lance Russell, he ad-libbed through a bomb threat just so the fans wouldn't know the show was in danger. Lance Russell wasn't just the voice of Memphis wrestling. He was the backbone. That's a great quote.
Very true.
4122. This is Bill Ash and the soon-to-be Dr. D.
Dr. D.
Yeah.
Yep, David Schultz. Boy, I'll tell you he was a tough customer.
Oh,
When he
man.
first started, all the boys would complain he was stiff, but then he turned into a great worker, and he was trained by none other than Herb Welch.
Yeah, Dr. D or David Schultz was a legit badass. He became a bounty hunter later in life. He was terrifying in wrestling or beyond that.
That's Bill Ash, who became the bootmaker in professional wrestling, and David Schultz. Next picture, Adam. Our next picture is certainly one of my favorite heel tag teams of all times. Phil Hickerson. This was in 1976, and Dennis Condrey.
Wow. You talk about a great, were they the Hollywood Blood? They had a nickname. I know that was about the time they were working with Nick too, because when I came in as an announcer, Hickerson and Condrey were one of the top tag teams.
No doubt about it. Michael, I'm going to let you do the honors on this one. It's 4124.
Saul Weingroff getting his head shaven. And that is Bearcat Brown over the barber's shoulder there. And that Pat Malone's profile at the very left-hand side of the picture is Pat Malone. I'm looking, and that almost looks like Freddie Blassie, but I don't think that's who that is.
It's Don Carson.
Don Carson. There you
Okay.
go. There you go, Don Carson.
And that's a legit barber there, it looks like.
Yes, sir. And Saul Weingroff getting his head shaved.
4125. 4125.
You know, that may have been in Birmingham, Pat, because Don Carson, Bearcat Brown were a tag team in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's right.
And I believe, and I'm almost sure that's Birmingham, because the guy whose face is covered up to the left of Don Carter, behind Don Carson, is Joe Dentonberg. Who was
Okay.
the promoter in Birmingham. Yeah, because I can see by his hair, that's Joe Dentonberg.
Okay.
And the final picture we'll show today is 4151. 4151 is the picture, and one of the great wrestlers, pure wrestlers of the Memphis area. He passed away in, I believe I'm right, 2014, not 100% sure on this. This is a fantastic picture of Mean Don Green, former U.S. junior champion. Classy guys you can see from the car and the dressed up picture and with the dog. Don Green was a great professional wrestler, Michael.
And the picture of the upper right-hand corner was probably taken at 100 Oaks Mall, because at the backdrop, when, those picture folks would come through from, it wasn't Olin Mills, but it was a different company, and they'd come through and do those portrait shots, and there were some good ones there. But yeah, Don Green ran a furniture store, Green's Furniture, on 8th Avenue in downtown Nashville for years. And once bought a washing machine from him, but what a great guy. I'll tell you what, Don Green was a great talker, and at one time did some commentary for Nick Goulas, but Don would be too, Nick didn't like him on commentary because Don would be too confrontational with the wrestlers. And so he got a lot of feedback from the folks that they didn't like that. So Don, although he had a wonderful vocabulary and was a great promo, did not make it as a commentator.
One thing I want to, Adam, if you put James's comment up there, he says Cornette took Condrey and Hickerson and became the original Midnight Express, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and that's not correct, because certainly Jim Cornette never managed, that I know of, Phil Hickerson. The first Midnight Express took place in the Fuller territory, and it was Dennis Condrey, Norville Austin, and Randy Rose. They came on to Memphis. Jim Cornette became the manager at the end of '83 when Bill Watts came and took Cornette, Rock and Roll Express, Dennis Condrey, and Bobby Eaton. So Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton was the first Midnight Express that Jim Cornette mentioned. Man, we went through a lot and had a lot going on. We'll go with kind of last take from Rusty. And Rusty, I always ask every week, what did you learn today? Because we threw a lot at you.
Oh man, there was so much. One thing I didn't realize before you told us today, Paul Neighbors. I had remembered Paul, seeing him on Memphis TV before, but I did not realize that he was related to the Jarretts, as you said. Now that all kind of makes sense. So I will tell Paul Neighbors Jr., we feel your loss, and R.I.P. Paul Neighbors.
Very good. Pat, final thoughts, and what did you learn today on Talking Memphis Wrestling?
Well, I always learn a lot. I actually had not thought about the Rocky Johnson Lawler fight, and didn't know that happened around the same time as the Ali Inoki fight. So that's always interesting. What's interesting to me is as we go back into the 70s, the people there were the people I grew up on in Memphis and in Birmingham. So I enjoy the early 70s.
Very good. What do you have coming up for next week, Pat?
They hadn't told me yet.
Probably on the road again. William will go back with you. I almost forgot the Good Doctor podcast, the Blues Doctor podcast. Will that be coming out at midnight tonight?
Yes, it will. Keep your fingers crossed if YouTube doesn't get mad at me for some reason. But we're going to talk about tonight the One Big Beautiful Bill as it applies to Medicaid, because it's got some big implications. Plus, we'll talk about some music. There's a very high-profile birthday this week, and I'm not going to give it away, so you have to watch the podcast to figure out who it is.
Very good. And now I am going to ask Michael St. John what his thoughts were on the show this week, what he has planned for next week, what Joshua has planned for next week, and what, Michael, if anything, did you learn today?
I learned that Randy Hales had a hell of a run as a kid He was everything from a cowboy all the way to a suave, debonair senior at Jonesboro High School. And it's great to see great pictures of somebody that you loved and befriended and has been just somebody very close to you in life. And we had a vacation there a little bit of a period of time, but through the unfortunate passing of Eddie Marlin got brought back together. And Randy, I really gained more respect for you today than ever watching that greatest bumps of all time of Randy Hales, I got to tell you. I also learned that Pat Trammell can play golf. Not
I didn't know
well,
that either.
but he and I maybe we ought to play around, Pat. We could tee off at 8 o'clock in the morning and probably after all our strokes get home before dark.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do like setting my own rules and putting them on the tee in the fairway. I think that's key.
I invent whole new scoring systems for golf. They have like numbers that don't exist and stuff.
Back in 1981, I got to play in a tournament in Nashville called the Jack Green Celebrity Open, and it was at that time the brand new golf course that the Opryland had opened up down on the riverbank on the Cumberland, and every hole had a different gimmick. And I can remember one hole you had to use a 2-iron the entire time.
Okay.
From the time you teed off to the time you putted it, you had to use a 2-iron. And then there was one hole you had to sit on a toilet, and they had a little short driver, and you had to tee off sitting on the toilet. So, I mean, it was one of these fun things, and everybody had a great time. And I think they were all about the 13th hole. They were all drunk anyway. So, but anyway, I had a lot of fun. Jack Green's son, the country music star's son, was a big fan of Kicks 104 and got me and Coyote to play in it. And I think Coyote made it through the 6th hole and he was gone. He was drunk. So, I mean, I finished it, but it was a great time. So I love those little gimmicky things. But I did. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. And Pat, I have got a couple of books for you that I've found that I think one of them is about President. I know you like to read books about the presidents. Mm-hmm. I've got one about John Adams and one about William McKinley. And okay. I want to send those or get those to you. Maybe we can grab lunch one day in the next hopefully before, but maybe after the 4th. Next okay. Friday is the 4th, and you ask about Joshua. He is politicking and groveling Pawpaw right now to go to a fireworks store.
All right.
And he's never been with Pawpaw to a fireworks store. And the dark side of Michael St. John is I love fireworks. I set a rock on fire one time in Hendersonville, Tennessee with fireworks, a rock. So he's groveling with Pawpaw. His daddy, when he was about 8 or 9 years old, and one of his favorite stories he tells is the first time he and his brother got to go to the fireworks stand with me, I gave him a credit card and said, get what you want. And they said, when we lived with our daddy, we would get maybe $10 to buy sparklers and some firecrackers. He said, I think we spent $200 of your money that day because we didn't know what to, we never had it. So we will spend a little bit of money between Cody and I. And so this year I've talked to his mom. And so Joshua's going to get to go fireworks shopping with me probably this weekend. And normally we go up to South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, because there's a place that I guess it's an importer store kind of place right there on Highway 72. So Joshua and Pawpaw get to cross off another thing on the bucket list. He gets to go fireworks shopping with his Pawpaw.
All right. Man, this is a hell of a show. We did a lot of stuff. I just want to say for those of you that's watching I saw the other night, and Pat, I apologize. I talked to your girl and didn't even know who the hell. She could have at least said, I'm Pat's employee. She didn't say that. Did she say I was a egotistical prick? Did she say that?
No, Kevin. She acted like you two were big buddies. Yeah, I talked to Randy. We talked for a while. Yeah, it was good to see him and all that kind of stuff. I said, I thought y'all didn't know each other. Oh, yeah. We know each other.
Well, you know me. I'll talk to anybody and act like I know them. Right?
Was that the second night with the alcohol by chance?
I didn't drink, not that whole weekend. They had it.
You.
She might have been drinking. Yeah.
Well, Melody only drinks. Melody only drinks in days that end in Y.
Oh, that's good. Can I give a plug? I don't know who it likes to try a new brand of alcohol or a new style. For a limited time only, Crown Royal has their blackberry flavored Crown Royal out. And my brother-in-law bought a bottle for about a week ago, and we had a sip of it, and just a shot over ice. It's very smooth, and Crown Royal is pretty good. They're flavored. Their honey, the Crown Royal honey, was one of my favorite. It lasted about 6 months, but just if anybody wants to taste a good taste, I'm not saying to get inebriated on it. I'm just saying for the taste, you may want to try it.
Good little tipski from Michael Ski. All right. For Pat Trammell and Dr. Robinson, Michael St. John, it's 1980 graduate. Open the rope and let it rain. Boy, we gave them Hail Hurricane and a bunch of old farts. This past Friday and Saturday night, we lit it up, we raised hell, and we had fun at Jonesboro High School. Thanks to Adam Dunn for producing. I'm Randy Hales saying bye-bye, everybody.
So long.
Good night.
Good night.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special